Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So, this topic came up at work today, and I kind of wanted to talk about it because I thought that it was a very interesting conversation, and I think it's, holds a lot of weight to it because I think it's actually really true. So, a couple of the security guards that I work with at my job, we're talking about the Miami Heat beating the Denver Nuggets and how it would be probably the greatest championship ever won in NBA history, or at least the greatest underdog story in NBA history. I think it would be both, personally, simply because Miami made the playoffs as a play-in team, right? They ended up beating Milwaukee, which was a team they weren't supposed to beat. Like, if anything, Milwaukee was probably the most impressive team that Miami had to face. Then, they go into the second round, they got to play Boston, which is arguably a number one seeded team as well. I think they were seeded number 2 in the East. Then, they make the finals, and they got to go against the Denver Nuggets, who are the number 1 seed in the West. And if you look back at all the NBA playoffs ever played, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, you look back on the path that these guys took to get to the NBA Finals, none of them have been as hard as the path the Miami Heat have had to take this year to get to the NBA Finals. And I'm just gonna call it what it is. Like, it's gonna put Jimmy Butler in GOAT conversations. Like, I know a lot of people look at Jimmy Butler and they don't put him in the same category as Michael Jordan. They don't put him in the same stratosphere as even these guys like LeBron James and Kevin Durant and stuff like that. But there's something to be said for playoff performances, and there's a lot of guys in the history of the league, and even present day, that don't show up during the playoffs. Like, the playoffs are the most important time of the season, and you have a lot of players that kind of just fall apart during those situations. And Miami was one of those teams that they're just, everything they're doing is impressive beyond comprehension. Like, I know people are like, oh, like, they're playing really well, right? But for whatever reason, it just feels like they're still not getting the respect they deserve. And last night against Denver, they played a solid game. They finally ended up beating Denver after game 1 looked like a fucking horror story. I actually was like, I'm like, Denver was playing really great defense. Like, they just couldn't score. They couldn't buy a basket from 3 if they tried. Max Strus shot 0 for 10 from 3 in game 1. And game 2, he comes out of the gate shooting 4 of 7. I think he had 11 points in the first quarter. And they let Nikola Jokic beat them. Like, that's what Miami did. They're like, you know what? Let Nikola Jokic get 41 points. Because that's what he got in game 2, 41. But they held everyone else, like, below 20. And if you can hold Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. below, like, 15 or 20 points, like, if you can keep Jamal Murray below 20 and Michael Porter Jr. below 15, like, if you can keep him even below 10, okay, like, I know that might be asking a lot, but he's a 15-point-per-game scorer. If you can keep those two guys on lock and just let Jokic score his 41, Miami could win this series. But when it's all said and done, I just feel like, for whatever reason, I feel like they're still not going to get the respect they deserve because it's Jimmy Butler, because it's the Miami Heat. And, like, they had Tyler Hero get injured, Duncan Robinson, a guy that, like, everybody had pretty much written off at the beginning of the season, comes in, next man up, and plays his game, and is playing relatively well during the playoffs. They have a bunch of undrafted free agents. They have Gabe Vincent on their team. They have Max Strus, who I don't think was drafted. They have Duncan Robinson, who I don't think was drafted. So they have a lot of undrafted guys on their roster, and they're playing it off. Caleb Martin has played amazing for the Miami Heat. Game 1, against Denver, he hasn't played great, but, like, throughout this entire playoff series, like, their playoff run, he's been very good as well. Bam Adebayo hasn't been like amazing, but he's been triple-double. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's been a guy who's going to go out there and maybe get you a triple-double in these playoffs, and it might be a low-scoring one, but it's, you know, good enough to get you a win. And Jimmy Butler, like, yeah, he's had a couple games that haven't been amazing, but he turns up when he has to. Granted, there was, you know, a couple games where, like, he turned up a little later than he should have, but it's just the idea, like, I just feel like because it's Jimmy Butler, because it's Miami, because they don't have a superstar player, even though, like, you could kind of make an argument that Jimmy Butler is at this point, just for what he's capable of in the playoffs, like, I have to say this, if you're like a true basketball enthusiast and you're not just like a super casual person, the true like basketball enthusiast finds this playoff run extremely impressive. And it honestly probably won't ever be done again. Like, I know that's crazy saying that, being that the play-in tournament is such a new thing, and that, like, I understand the teams in the play-in tournament are, like, fringe playoff teams, but to be a play-in team, and then you gotta play against the best team in the East right after you play these two borderline playoff teams, and then you, like, they also, like, Miami played more games than any of the playoff teams, you know what I'm saying, because they were a play-in team. They had to play 2 games just to get into the playoffs. Then they get into the playoffs, and they gotta play all of these guys in best-of-7 series. Like, I'm just saying, like, I think this ring, if Miami wins it, is the most impressive NBA championship in NBA history. And I know that's a stretch. I know there's going to be people who disagree with that, but it's just the idea for what the personnel that they have compared to what they're playing against. They are just playing very, very good team basketball, and it's winning them games. You know, this is why coaches will always tell you that team basketball matters more than scoring 50 points a game, because Miami is doing that. You know, like, they've got a bunch of guys like Jimmy Butler. Yeah, Jimmy Butler's going to go out and get maybe high 20s, low 30s in the scoring category, but he's going to dish assists. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to play defense. He's going to get in the passing lanes. Like, Jimmy Butler's a very good all-around player. I understand that three-point shooting isn't amazing, but it's good enough. You know what I'm saying? It's good enough to get the job done. And, you know, for me, I've never seen anything like this in my life. In my entire life, I don't think I've ever seen an 8th seed get all the way to the NBA Finals. I just don't think I've ever seen it. And if I have, I don't remember it. You know, it's crazy. It's a historic feat. And I really, really don't think this will ever be replicated for a long time. Like, I think people don't understand that, like, the gravity of that like, a fucking play-in team just got to the NBA Finals. A team that wasn't even really supposed to make the playoffs ended up beating the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, and now have a chance to beat the Denver Nuggets. Now, if we flip the script a little bit and go over to the Denver Nuggets side of things, if Nikola Jokic loses these NBA Finals, this could be equivalent to, I can't say that's going to be equivalent to that, but it's going to be one of the bigger upsets in NBA history, that, like, Nikola Jokic, a guy who arguably should have won league MVP, number 1 seed in the West, a team that's not really getting talked about, a team that is arguably deeper than the Miami Heat. They're arguably more talented than the Miami Heat. It's just the Miami Heat are playing better team basketball. Eric Spoelstra is a guy who I think deserves to be in, like, one of the best coaches of all time conversations if he actually wins this playoff series. Like, I understand there's been a lot of coaches that have done a lot of incredible things, but Eric Spoelstra has somehow managed to get his team to buy into everything he says. And there's not a lot of coaches that are able to do that. Even Joe Mazzulla of the Boston Celtics admitted that there was a disconnect between him and the players on the Boston Celtics this year during the playoffs. Just probably like the worst time ever to admit something like that. And yes, they did give Miami a run for their money by coming back from 3-0 to forcing a Game 7. But it's just the idea, like, Eric Spoelstra deserves a lot of credit as well. Not just Jimmy Butler, not just the team, not just the feat that they've accomplished, but, like, Eric Spoelstra deserves a lot of credit for how he's been able to adapt to every single team he's played against. Okay, yeah, against Milwaukee, you gotta stop Giannis. Okay, you have to. Against the Nuggets, yeah, you can get away with Jokic killing you, but you gotta stop Jamal Murray. You gotta stop Michael Porter Jr. Against Boston, Boston was probably their one of their hardest matchup. I would say second hardest matchup, because I think Boston's maybe a little bit more of a complete team than Denver is. Even in some aspects, I would say that Boston has better talent than the Milwaukee Bucks do. But it's just the idea, like, those two teams, to beat Miami and beat those two fucking teams, and then you got to go to the finals and play this team. It just, to me, it doesn't seem like, it seems unreal. I mean, I feel like I'm leaving something out here as well, but it just, the playoffs have been absolutely insane, and I just think it's going to be, like, if Miami wins, it's going to be one of those things that gets talked about for a long time, at least among, like, basketball heads, you know what I'm saying? At least against people that are really into the sport, but against other people, I like, for like the casual NBA fan, I just feel like it's not going to get talked about as much, and that sucks, but it's going to be what it's going to be. But I kind of want to look for what Miami's path to the playoffs have been, because they have had a pretty crazy run. Okay, so let's go here. Yeah, they finished with a record of, so they beat Milwaukee. Yeah, these are the teams they beat. They beat Milwaukee 4-1. They beat the Knicks 4-2. They beat the Celtics 4-3, and now they're playing Denver. Like, that's one hell of a run. Like, even New York's not the best team in the world, but to play Milwaukee and beat Boston and then potentially beat Denver, I don't think there's ever been a harder path to an NBA championship than that for a team like that. So, tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.